News. The murder of Rob Reiner and his wife Michele Singer Reiner. Nick Reiner, their son, now charged in the double murder. His attorney...
Some stories are too horrifying to believe. A household that seemed ordinary, even loving, and then a night that turned everything upside down. Hollywood icon Rob Reiner, the visionary behind When Harry Met Sally, Stand By Me, and The Princess Bride, had spent decades telling stories of friendship, love, and family. His films were comforting, timeless, and celebrated across generations. But in the early hours of December 14th, 2025, the reality behind the cameras became a nightmare. Rob Reiner and his wife, Michele Singer Reiner, were found dead inside their Los Angeles home. Authorities later confirmed it. This wasn't an accident. Their deaths were homicides, violent and shocking. And the shock didn't stop there. Hours later, the person taken into custody was not a stranger. It was their own son, 32-year-old Nick Reiner, now charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances. A family admired by millions, a life of fame and creativity, and yet, in a single night, everything changed. The question now gripping the world, how could a tragedy like this happen in one of Hollywood's most celebrated households? And the story is far from over. What happened inside that home, the events leading up to this horror, and the truth behind the son's arrest are just beginning to surface. Rob Reiner wasn't just a filmmaker, he was Hollywood royalty in his own right. The man who brought Stand By Me and The Princess Bride to life didn't just make movies. He crafted stories that defined generations, capturing friendship, love, and loyalty in ways that felt personal to everyone who watched. Michele Singer Reiner was no less remarkable. A celebrated photographer, producer, and activist, she carved her own legacy, one built on creativity, dedication, and impact. From the outside, they were the picture-perfect couple, admired, accomplished, seemingly untouchable. Friends, family, and fans all saw success and stability. But sometimes appearances are deceiving. Behind the polished smiles, behind the accolades and applause, something darker was quietly brewing. And what happened next would shatter everything people thought they knew about this family. A tragedy so unexpected it would stun Hollywood and the world. The quiet of a normal afternoon was shattered in the worst possible way. Their daughter, Romy Reiner, walked into the Brentwood home she had grown up in and found her parents unresponsive, lying where life had been taken violently from them. Officials later confirmed the horrifying truth. Both Rob and Michele had died from multiple sharp force injuries, a legal term for fatal stab wounds. This wasn't the work of a stranger sneaking in from the streets. It wasn't a random act of violence. It was a tragedy that came from within the walls of the family home itself. A revelation so shocking, it would leave Hollywood, the world, and the family struggling to comprehend how everything they knew could unravel in an instant. And as investigators pieced together the events of that day, one question loomed over everything. Who could commit such a crime, and why so close to home? Hours after the horrific discovery, the focus of the investigation turned inward, to someone no one expected. Their son, just 32 years old, was taken into custody near the University of Southern California. What made this arrest so shocking wasn't just the charges, it was who he was. The son of the victims, the person who had lived under the same roof, shared family meals, and grown up in the very home where this tragedy unfolded. Nick was immediately charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, including special circumstances for the use of a deadly weapon and multiple victims. He is being held without bail as authorities and prosecutors continue their investigation. Suddenly, this wasn't just a Hollywood tragedy. It was a family nightmare playing out in the harsh glare of public scrutiny, a story of trust, proximity, and betrayal that no one could have anticipated. Nick Reiner's life was far from simple. For years, he had battled addiction and mental health struggles, challenges that were widely reported and publicly documented. At one point, he even worked with his father on the film Being Charlie, a semi-autobiographical story about addiction and personal turmoil. The project wasn't just art, it was a reflection of the very struggles the family had faced in private. These difficulties paint a picture of a life fraught with tension and unresolved pain, a context that helps explain the complexities of the household, though, of course, they do not excuse the events that followed. Nick's history of personal battles makes the tragedy all the more heartbreaking, raising questions about the pressures behind closed doors in a family that appeared, to the outside world, to have it all. Here's what investigators and official sources have confirmed so far, the hard facts behind a story that has stunned the world. Rob Reiner, 78, and Michele Singer Reiner, 70, were found dead in their Brentwood home on December 14, 2025. The cause of death for both? Multiple sharp force injuries, meaning fatal stab wounds. Their son, Nick Reiner, 32, was arrested hours later and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, including special circumstances for multiple victims and use of a deadly weapon. He is being held without bail while investigation continues. His arraignment has been postponed until January 7, 2026. These are the undisputed facts, the pieces of the puzzle that define the tragedy without speculation. Even stripped down to these bare facts, the story is shocking and heartbreaking. A family celebrated for talent and creativity, brought to the center of a nightmare no one could have imagined. While the confirmed facts are devastating, there are still many questions that official sources have not answered. Some reports suggest that there may have been a family argument the night before the tragedy, possibly at a holiday gathering. However, authorities have not confirmed this, and it remains unverified. The motive behind the killings is unknown. Investigators have not released any information about why this horrific act occurred. These elements, the timing, the tension, the possible disputes, are speculation and secondary reporting. They can provide context and help viewers understand potential background, but they should never be presented as fact. Even without knowing every detail, the lack of answers makes the story even more haunting. The idea that a family so admired, so accomplished, could face such a private nightmare leaves everyone searching for explanations and wondering what really happened behind closed doors. The spotlight of public attention turned from tragedy to the courtroom, where the shocking reality of the case became painfully real. Nick Reiner made his first court appearance in Los Angeles, but it was far from ordinary. He did not enter a plea, leaving the legal process suspended in uncertainty. Adding to the intensity, he was wearing a suicide prevention vest, a stark reminder of the fragility surrounding the situation. The arraignment has been postponed until January 7th, 2026, giving lawyers and prosecutors time to prepare their cases and leaving the public waiting for the next chapter of this unfolding tragedy. Even in the courtroom, the tension is palpable. Every eye in the room, every question asked, every silence that follows, all underscore the gravity of a family nightmare now unfolding under the harsh glare of the law and public scrutiny. The news of Rob and Michele Reiner's deaths sent shockwaves across Hollywood and the world. Colleagues, friends, and fans struggled to reconcile the tragedy with the legacy of a family admired for decades. Tributes poured in, highlighting Rob Reiner's cinematic genius and activism, and Michele Singer Reiner's influence as a photographer and producer. Within the family, grief was immediate and devastating. Their daughter Romy and other relatives described the loss as horrific and surreal, a pain compounded by the circumstances of their deaths. The contrast between their public image, a talented, successful, and seemingly happy family, and the reality of the tragedy has left fans and the media grappling with a chilling question. How could something so dark occur behind closed doors? This is more than a Hollywood story. It's a reminder that even in families that seem perfect, unimaginable tragedy can strike, leaving devastation, unanswered questions, and a legacy forever marked by loss. Even with the facts laid bare, so much remains unknown. What truly led to this horrifying night? Could it have been prevented? And how will a family that once seemed so admired and untouchable ever recover? Authorities are investigating, lawyers are preparing, and the world watches as this tragedy unfolds in real time. Yet, no clear answers have emerged, leaving a void filled only with questions, speculation, and grief. Rob Reiner spent a lifetime telling stories where conflicts found resolution, where friendship, love, and courage triumphed. But in real life, there are no scripts. Some tragedies are messier, darker, and far less predictable than anything Hollywood could imagine. And this story, a family torn apart, a son accused of unthinkable acts, and the haunting absence of answers, is still being written. For now, the only certainty is the heartbreak, the shock, and the reminder that even the most celebrated families are not immune to tragedy.